I must admit to a kind of fascination with cedar trees like these, that have been shaped, trimmed, rounded. It's kind of a harmony thing, probably came from Europe. Give a landscape a few of these and it becomes almost a visual conversation. It gives your eyes little punctuational cues, if you will. And all this to prepare you for a story about some folks who've been conversing with cedar trees for about 70 years. They're the Flemings, two brothers, George and Joe, and their sister, Anne. They live here, just south of Hallett in Pawnee County. Their small frame house sits on 160 acres that includes State Highway 99, which burrowed across their quarter section sometime back in the 30s. But if it hadn't been for State Highway 99, the two Fleming brothers probably wouldn't have planted and then pruned all those cedars we just saw along the highway. And if it hadn't been for their father, George Fleming Sr., there probably wouldn't be any cedars at all, trimmed or otherwise.
1899, well, he went down and got these trees just as soon as he got the place.
Well, he hauled them across the river, the Cimarron River. They'd go down one day and get them and come back the next.
You just haul them in a wagon?
Oh, yeah.
Haul them up here on a wagon.
Wagon, yeah.
Did you help plant some of these?
No, that's for my time. Yeah.
George Fleming Sr. was an unusual man, by current standards anyway, by Indian Territory standards as well. An unusually strong man who meandered down into Indian Territory from Illinois 8 years before statehood. He possessed a raft of talents, among them, according to another of his sons, Ed Fleming, who lives in Tulsa, was what used to be called horse trading.
Bridges, he forded the Cimarron, he forded the, he came down from Pittsburgh, he had to ford the Arkansas River too up here, or you people down here call it the Arkansas. Some of that came out here, and he approached the gentleman. He was living in the dugout.
You mean?
Which was down over the hill here. He had him dug out there. And they made a deal. My dad traded his wagon, his team of horses, and the harness. And he gave the man $300 to boot for his section. He kept his riding horse in the saddle.
And so George Fleming Sr. had just swapped his brazen self into 160 fertile Oklahoma acres, complete with nothing you see here now. No foliage to speak of, no dwellings, no roads. Just a sea of buffalo grass and the silhouetted figures of a self-made homesteader and his riding horse. Oklahoma then was very much an Indian's territory.
Yeah, this is the dugout where he lived. He lived here 2 years. And he dug it with a cultivator shovel. Yeah, he didn't have no shovel.
There's not much left of it.
No, she's all fell in now. Yeah. Been aimed to dig it out and fix it over, but haven't ever got to it.
You've been 2 solitary years in a dugout. Sounds, predictable sounds, have become like old friends. During the day, the wind, and at night, insects and animals conversing with one another. Throughout, the rustle of your clothing, your boots pressing the new and unbroken soil. And then the sound of your breathing, the perpetual companion, easy or heavy depending on how the work is going. George Fleming added another sound to this basic repertoire one energetic day.
You know, he wouldn't let us kids fool with his knives, trimming knives.
Or would he let us trim a tree?
He wouldn't let us fool with his tree when we was kids. Yeah. After he got around 70 years old, he turned the knives over to me.
Why don't you give me a demonstration of how you go about this?
Sure.
Just go right ahead, yeah.
George?
I don't know if I can use these knives. These knives not mine. This is not
These
my
are
knife.
These kind of knives I like, and he likes a different kind
Different
of knife. And I made these out of saw. We make them ourselves.
They're not very sharp. Let's here's a good tree over here.
You know, trimming these trees, you want damp weather. See, there's a lot of dust in it. See the dust fly out of that tree? And that will choke you.
Well, you like to get them a little wet, huh?
Yeah, look, when it's mist and rain, that's a good time. Wet season. It'll take you around 10 to 15 minutes to trim a tree.
So what, 10, 15 minutes times 119 trees, you've got,
Yeah.
you got quite a few hours involved in there.
Oh yeah, it takes a little time. But while I'm trimming trees, I'm not loafing in town. But after I trim a few hours, I go to town. We both trim them. You know, sometimes one of us trim more than the other, but we all work at it. Sometimes I sell some cedar seed. I tell the people they buy seed off these trees and they'll grow just like this without any work.
And I guess they believe you.
No, they won't believe me. No, they come by and stop, watch us, you know. And I don't know if they think we're crazy or what, but we just like to do it. That old tree there, that's about 70 years old, and all the rest of them would look like that if they hadn't been cut out.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, these trees, the way they're shaped now, you know.
Yes, sir.
Now, are all of these shaped were they shaped by your father, and you and your brother now are just maintaining
Yeah.
what he had done? Is that it?
Yeah, that's right.
These are all his designs, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he should have been an architect or a landscape designer.
Well,
Dad, he'd always come up on them. Like that. And he'd have that tree just as smooth as a piece of paper. And when he come to a twig like this, he'd take time and cut that twig off.
Huh.
Make it smooth. But
Do you ever race George? See who can get it first?
no. But I know how to trim old George.
You think we ought to ask him for equal time, maybe?
Yeah.
What do you think?
well, I don't get no hurry, cause I know they're going to be here tomorrow, and if I don't get it today, I'll get her tomorrow.
About the time Fleming Sr. planted these cedars, he built this house, rough-hewn logs. He then went back into Missouri and brought back a wife. Artella Strang was her name. They had 3 children in the cabin. 5 more arrived in this house, built to replace the outgrown log dwelling. And it was in this frame house that George Jr. and Joe were born, and where they've remained, and where they plan to remain. Let's drop back for a moment and get a new perspective. Here's 160 hand-worked Oklahoma acres. Here's a couple of oil derricks from a temporary lease since drained. The equipment moved away to siphon off another promising pool somewhere. Here's 119 cedar trees, pampered and made to look paper smooth at the hands of 3 different men named Fleming. A methodical progression of 3 separate dwellings, an earthen dugout, a cabin, a small white house. each protection and shelter for 10 Flemings at one time or another. A storybook tale about people quite real, a kind of people with a bashful security that rubs off and builds an instant friendship with little talk and even less ceremony. The story should end here, but it doesn't. It doesn't because something is wrong with this storybook tale. It slipped onto this farm and into this story with a sickening, dehumanizing jolt that I've carried with me ever since it was brought to my attention. It intends to do away with more than half of these 160 acres. It's really 152 acres. 8 were usurped as right-of-way for State Highway 99 about 40 years ago. But that wasn't enough. Because concrete breeds concrete, and the breeding grounds are farms like this. And what's been bred is another strip, the Cimarron Turnpike, complete with toll booth and corresponding clover leaves and a brand new right-of-way for State Highway 99, 50 yards away from the one now in use. Altogether about 80 acres, leaving 72 acres to the original homestead. The new 99 will strangle the dugout. The new clover leaf will decapitate the cedars along the old 99. And the whole affair, which documents the runaway dominance that places the automobile above the human spirit, the whole affair has broken the hearts of 3 very spirited people.
They wanted to get started in May, but they wasn't going to get started in May. And they told us it was going to be, it might be in July or last of June. But they haven't got their surveying done yet, and so it's going to be a little late getting started.
Well, you just going to have to move some of your cattle or what?
Oh, yeah, it's taking pretty much all our grassland. Yeah, on this half section, we got a half section in here, and it's tearing them both up.
Does it make you feel bad?
What do you think? It makes me mad. Yeah, they're different class of people. Travel them there turnpikes. They ain't like us ranchers.